Nam Talu, cave tragedy. They walked in with confidence. It was supposed to be nothing more than a damp trail inside a tourist cave in Thailand. What could possibly go wrong? But within minutes, the adventure turned into a nightmare. The water began to rise rapidly, filling the narrow passages with unstoppable force. When the silence finally returned, 8 people were dead. This was not just a natural tragedy. It was a disaster foretold, born of negligence, oversight, and humanity's eternal underestimation of nature's power. Today, we reconstruct the final minutes inside Nam Talu cave in 2007, when a group of tourists was swallowed by a flash flood. Get ready. This is a story where every second meant the difference between life and death. What happened? It was October 13th, 2007. Inside the cave were 9 people, 6 foreign tourists who did not survive, 4 Swiss nationals, 1 British man, and a 10-year-old boy from Germany, 2 Thai guides who also perished, and the only survivor, a British woman rescued after clinging to life for more than 16 hours. Among the victims were 4 Swiss nationals, a couple and their 2 teenage daughters, alongside the German boy and the British tourist. 2 local guides accompanied them on what was supposed to be a safe excursion through Nam Talu cave, a formation barely 500 meters deep, but known for its narrow corridors, underground streams, and striking limestone walls. The day seemed calm. The sky was cloudy but showed no immediate signs of danger. They entered cautiously, reassured by the lack of any official warnings about flooding. What they didn't know was that, miles above, heavy rains were already pounding the mountain slopes, far from sight, but sending torrents of water into the cave's drainage system. Barely 30 minutes after they entered, the water arrived. A sudden flash flood roared through the underground channels. It was swift and brutal. In seconds, the water surged, and the narrow passages turned into violent torrents, with no escape routes and little light. Panic spread. Some tried to swim, others clung desperately to the walls, but the water was merciless. When the flood finally receded, 8 were gone. Only 1 remained alive, Helena Carroll, 21, from the UK, who had clung to a ledge inside the cave for nearly 16 hours before rescuers finally reached her. Human impact. The tragedy carried a devastating toll. Among the dead were children, young adults, and even seasoned guides. The German boy, just 10 years old, drowned next to his mother. The Swiss family lost both parents and their daughters. The 2 Thai men, the guide and the boatman, also perished trying to lead the group to safety. The lone survivor was left scarred for life. Reports described her in shock, shivering with hypothermia, her eyes blank after spending endless hours in darkness, knowing everyone around her had been taken. Imagine being alone in that cave, listening only to rushing water, aware that silence meant death. News spread quickly. International outlets covered the story, and families were left shattered. For those who had planned a dream vacation to one of Thailand's most beautiful parks, it became a nightmare of unimaginable grief. European governments demanded explanations from Thai authorities. The pain transcended borders. The Nam Talu disaster became a symbol of how ill-prepared tourism operations can be when faced with obvious natural risks. Mechanism of death. Medically, the victims drowned. But forensic analysis revealed more. The water inside the cave reached violent speeds, slamming bodies against rock walls and forcing them underwater in passages with no airspace. Some sustained blunt force injuries. Others suffered pulmonary damage as they inhaled muddy, debris-filled water. It happened quickly. The sudden rise in water cut off oxygen, leaving most unconscious within minutes. For the young German boy, vulnerability was even greater. His small body, weaker resistance, and panic sped up the fatal outcome. The Thai guide tried desperately to lead the group to higher ground, but the cave itself became a trap. What seemed like safe corridors turned into deadly funnels, where the water worked like a piston, pushing everything, human or not, downward. What caused the disaster? The phenomenon is known as a flash flood. When intense rainfall hits higher terrain, water cascades rapidly toward lower ground. In caves, the effect is magnified, as the flow is funneled into narrow passages with no outlet. In 2007, Thailand was in the middle of monsoon season. Even without visible rain near the cave, rainfall upstream was enough to turn a shallow stream into a lethal torrent. The greater problem was the absence of risk management. No official protocols were in place to close the cave on unstable days. Local guides relied only on surface weather conditions, an error that proved fatal. After the tragedy, authorities admitted that Nam Talu had seen smaller flood incidents before, but no effective restrictions had ever been implemented. Response and legacy. In the wake of the disaster, Thailand faced intense international pressure. Nam Talu Cave was closed for months, and eventually seasonal access rules were established. Today, the cave is only open outside the monsoon period, from December to May. Warning signs were installed, and new regulations imposed on tour operators. For many, those measures came far too late. The 2007 case exposed not only the fragility of the cave environment, but also the negligence of a tourism industry that often prioritized income over safety. For families and the lone survivor, the memory has never faded. The Nam Talu case continues to be studied in rescue training, adventure tourism safety manuals, and disaster prevention courses. But history repeated itself. After 2007, park officials reinforced the seasonal closure from June to November. Yet on August 6, 2024, another group entered Nam Talu during the forbidden period. Once again, a flash flood struck the system. This time, 22 tourists escaped, but one man, Guide Pongyot Kurdi, 37, was swept away and killed. Authorities announced legal action against the operator responsible. This more recent tragedy shows that the lessons of 2007 have not yet been fully learned. We will examine this 2024 incident in detail in a future episode. The Nam Talu cave tragedy of 2007 is a chilling reminder. Nature does not forgive carelessness. For the tourists, it was just another excursion. For the water rushing from the mountain, they were nothing more than obstacles in its path. 8 lives were lost in mere minutes, victims of a collective error, believing that what cannot be controlled can somehow be managed. And you? Do you still believe a safe adventure really exists? If this story struck you, subscribe to our channel. Here, we reconstruct the final minutes of real tragedies, so that the victims are not forgotten and the warnings never silenced. In Nam Talu Cave, it wasn't only the water that claimed 8 lives. It was also the reminder that, in the heart of darkness, nature always demands its price. And we, humans, can only choose whether we learn or repeat.